The laughter echoed, a cruel symphony against my broken stride. They mocked my limp at the saloon, a daily ritual of scorn, a brand upon my soul. Each jeer carved deeper than any bullet, leaving me adrift in a sea of contempt, yearning for a shore of dignity. But the railroad tycoon's gift left the whole town speechless, silencing their sneers forever. Witness the turning tide. Subscribe now. The dust of Redemption Creek clung to my boots, a familiar companion to the ache in my left leg, a constant throbbing reminder of the fall that had twisted my fate. Every step was a testament to endurance, a slow, deliberate shuffle that drew eyes, not of pity but of a cold, calculating amusement. The saloon doors, swinging wide, always seemed to amplify the sound of my approach, a creaking prelude to the inevitable whispers and snickers that would soon follow, a chorus of judgment that had become the soundtrack of my existence in this unforgiving town. I carried the weight of their gaze like a heavy shroud, a burden far more crushing than the physical pain itself, wishing for the earth to swallow me whole, to erase the spectacle of my struggle from their cruel, indifferent eyes. The air inside the Golden Spur Saloon was thick with the scent of stale whiskey and unwashed bodies, a haze that did little to obscure the sharp, mocking glint in the eyes of the men gathered around the card tables. As I navigated the crowded floor, my cane tapping a rhythmic, almost apologetic beat against the worn planks, their conversations would falter, then resume with renewed vigor, punctuated by exaggerated limps and crude imitations of my halting walk. Each forced cough, each stifled chuckle, was a dagger to my already wounded spirit, a confirmation of my outsider status, a constant reaffirmation that I was nothing more than a source of cheap entertainment, a living caricature of weakness in a world that prized strength above all else. I would find my usual corner, a shadowed alcove near the back, where the light was dim and the stairs less direct, a small sanctuary from the relentless scrutiny. The barkeep, a man named Silas with eyes that had seen too much and cared too little, would slide a glass of lukewarm ale across the counter without a word, his silence a more bearable form of contempt than the open ridicule. I would nurse my drink, listening to the cacophony of laughter and boasts, the clinking of glasses and the shuffling of cards, all of it a distant, alien symphony that underscored my profound isolation. The world moved on around me, vibrant and boisterous, while I remained a silent observer, a ghost in my own life, trapped within the confines of my visible imperfection. The taunts were rarely direct, a testament to the cowardice of the men who delivered them, preferring the safety of a collective sneer to a singular confrontation. Instead, they would weave their cruelty into their jokes, their stories, their casual conversations, always loud enough for me to hear, always pointed enough to sting. "Looks like old Jed's got a hitch in his giddy-up tonight," one would bellow, followed by a ripple of laughter, their eyes flicking towards my hunched form, savoring my discomfort. It was a slow, insidious torture, designed to chip away at my resolve, to remind me of my place, to ensure I never forgot the shame that clung to me like a second skin, a constant burning reminder of my perceived inadequacy. My limp was not a choice, but a consequence, a brutal legacy of a childhood accident that had stolen my youthful agility and replaced it with a lifelong burden. Yet in their eyes it was a moral failing, a sign of weakness that deserved their scorn, a visible flaw that justified their cruelty. They saw only the physical impediment, never the resilience it had forged, never the quiet strength it had demanded of me every single day. Their mockery was a reflection of their own shallow understanding, a testament to their inability to look beyond the surface, to see the man beneath the broken gate, the spirit that refused to be entirely crushed, even under the weight of their relentless derision. And so night after night I endured, a silent target in the heart of the town's social hub, my presence a stark contrast to the boisterous revelry. Each mocking glance, each whispered insult, fueled a quiet fire within me, not of anger but of a deep, aching longing for a day when their laughter would cease, when their eyes would hold something other than scorn, when the very air in the saloon would shift, acknowledging a truth they were too blind to see. That day would come, I knew, though I had no idea how, but it would come, and their silence would be my sweetest victory. Subscribe to witness the silence. The usual din of the Golden Spur was punctuated by a new kind of murmur, a low hum of speculation that rippled through the room like a sudden gust of wind. It wasn't the usual gossip about a new prospector or a fresh shipment of whiskey. This was different, charged with an almost reverent awe. The name on everyone's lips was the Tycoon, whispered with a mixture of fear and admiration, a man whose wealth was rumored to stretch across continents, whose influence could reshape landscapes and destinies with a mere stroke of a pen. His arrival in Redemption Creek, a dusty speck on the map, was an anomaly, a comet streaking across a familiar sky, leaving everyone bewildered and buzzing with questions. He was a man of legend, they said, the architect of steel ribbons that snaked across the vast, untamed wilderness, connecting distant towns and transforming desolate stretches into bustling hubs of commerce. The railroad, his railroad, was a symbol of progress, an unstoppable force that devoured distance and reshaped the very fabric of the nation. For such a man to descend upon their humble saloon, to breathe the same air as common folk, was an event of monumental significance, a disruption to the predictable rhythm of their lives. Every man in the room, from the grizzled prospector to the slick card shark, felt the weight of his presence even if he was yet to appear. I listened from my shadowed corner, the usual sting of their mockery momentarily dulled by the pervasive sense of anticipation. The Tycoon, they muttered, was a man of few words but immense power, a visionary who saw beyond the immediate horizon, who understood the intricate dance of ambition and opportunity. Some spoke of his ruthlessness, others of his uncanny foresight, but all agreed on one thing. His presence here meant something big, something that could either elevate or obliterate their small existence. The air crackled with unspoken hopes and fears, a collective breath held in the face of the unknown, a palpable tension that made the very floorboards hum. The saloon doors swung open then, not with the usual creak, but with a deliberate, almost ceremonial slowness, revealing a figure silhouetted against the fading light of the setting sun. He was not the towering giant some had imagined, nor the flamboyant showman others had expected. Instead, he was a man of quiet authority, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the rough-spun clothes of the patrons, his eyes, sharp and discerning, sweeping across the room with an almost unsettling intensity. A hush fell over the Golden Spur, the clinking of glasses ceasing, the boisterous laughter dying in throats replaced by a profound, almost reverent silence that swallowed every sound. He moved with a deliberate grace, his gaze lingering on no one in particular, yet seeming to encompass everyone. There was no arrogance in his bearing, but an undeniable presence, a quiet power that commanded attention without demanding it. He ordered a single glass of water, a stark departure from the whiskey-soaked preferences of the saloon's regulars, and took a seat at a small, unoccupied table near the window, his back to the wall, his posture relaxed yet alert. The men in the saloon, usually so quick to judge and mock, found themselves strangely subdued, their usual bravado replaced by a nervous deference, a silent acknowledgement of a force far beyond their understanding. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the focus of the saloon shifted entirely away from my Limp, away from my corner, away from the familiar target of their scorn. All eyes were on the Tycoon, a silent, collective fascination that transcended their petty cruelties. I watched him too, a flicker of curiosity stirring within me, a faint hope that perhaps, just perhaps, his arrival might bring a change, a disruption to the established order of things, a ripple in the stagnant pond of my existence. The air was thick with possibility, a silent promise of something momentous about to unfold. Subscribe to see what unfolds. Days turned into a week, and the railroad tycoon, a man named Elias Thorne, remained a quiet fixture in Redemption Creek, his presence a constant, unsettling undercurrent in the town's daily rhythm. He spent his mornings inspecting the land surrounding the town, his afternoons in hushed conversations with the few influential figures, and his evenings, without fail, at the Golden Spur Saloon. He never joined the card games, never engaged in the boisterous banter, simply sat at his table by the window observing, his sharp eyes missing nothing, absorbing every nuance of the town's unspoken narratives, a silent, watchful sentinel. His presence had a curious effect on the usual patrons. The mockery of my Limp, while not entirely gone, had become more subdued, less overt. The men, conscious of the Tycoon's silent gaze, seemed to temper their cruelty, as if his discerning eyes held a mirror to their own petty natures. It was a small reprieve, a temporary cessation of hostilities, but it was enough to make me notice, to feel a faint stirring of something akin to hope, a fragile bloom in the barren landscape of my daily humiliation. His silence was a shield, his presence an unspoken deterrent, a subtle shift in the power dynamics of the room. One evening, As I made my slow, deliberate way to my usual corner, a sudden, unexpected silence fell over the saloon, deeper and more profound than any before. I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, a sense of being watched, not with the usual derision, but with an intense, almost analytical scrutiny. I hesitated, my hand tightening on my cane, and slowly, cautiously turned my head. There across the room sat Elias Thorne, his gaze fixed directly upon me, his eyes like twin points of light, piercing through the dimness, through the layers of my self-consciousness, straight into the core of my being. It was not a look of pity, nor of judgment, but of something far more unsettling, recognition. His eyes held a depth that seemed to understand, not just the physical manifestation of my limp, but the unseen burdens it carried, the silent battles fought within. In that fleeting moment, the cacophony of the saloon faded. The faces of the mocking men blurred into an indistinct background, and only his gaze remained, a singular, powerful force that stripped away my defenses, leaving me exposed, yet strangely seen, understood in a way I had never been before, a raw, vulnerable truth laid bare. My breath caught in my throat, a sudden, unfamiliar tightness in my chest. I had spent years perfecting the art of invisibility, of blending into the shadows, of deflecting their stares with a practiced indifference, but his gaze bypassed all my defenses, reaching something deep within me that I had long thought dormant, a spark of dignity that had been buried under layers of shame. It was a silent conversation, a profound acknowledgement that transcended words, a moment of pure, unadulterated connection that left me trembling, not with fear, but with an overwhelming sense of being truly witnessed. The moment passed as quickly as it had come. He nodded almost imperceptibly, a slight dip of his head that was both a greeting and an acknowledgement, then turned his attention back to the window, his profile once again impassive. But the impact of that glance lingered, a warm ember in the cold ashes of my despair. It was a seed of possibility, a whisper of a different future, a silent promise that perhaps, just perhaps, my story was not yet fully written, that there was more to my existence than the mockery of a saloon. Subscribe to discover the promise. The days following Elias Thorne's piercing glance were marked by an almost unbearable tension, a quiet anticipation that hummed beneath the surface of Redemption Creek. The Tycoon continued his silent observations, his presence a constant enigmatic force. The men in the saloon, still wary of his discerning eye, maintained their subdued demeanor, their usual boisterousness replaced by a nervous quietude. I too felt the shift, a strange mix of hope and trepidation, wondering what, if anything, that singular moment of connection might mean for my desolate existence. The air was thick with unspoken questions, a collective holding of breath. Then came the announcement, delivered by a stern-faced clerk who arrived on the morning stage, carrying a sealed document bearing the Tycoon's crest. A public assembly was called for that very afternoon, at the town square, an unprecedented event that drew every man, woman, and child from their homes and businesses. The sun beat down relentlessly, mirroring the intensity of the crowd's curiosity, their whispers a restless tide as they speculated on the purpose of this grand summons. Was it a new railroad line? A land acquisition? The possibilities swirled, each more grand than the last, fueling the town's collective imagination. Elias Thorne stood on a makeshift platform, his figure commanding attention despite his lack of overt theatrics. He spoke with a quiet authority, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. He spoke of progress, of the future, of the interconnectedness of communities. He spoke of the railroad's expansion, of new opportunities, of a vision that stretched far beyond the dusty confines of Redemption Creek. The crowd listened, captivated, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and self-interest, each person imagining how this powerful man's words might reshape their own small corner of the world, their dreams taking flight. Then his gaze, as if drawn by an invisible thread, found me in the periphery of the crowd, standing slightly apart, my cane a familiar anchor. He paused, a deliberate, almost dramatic silence falling over the square, drawing every eye to where his own were fixed. A ripple of confusion, then recognition, spread through the crowd as they followed his gaze, their faces shifting from anticipation to bewilderment, then to a dawning, uncomfortable understanding. The whispers began again, this time directed at me, but they were different now, tinged with a hesitant curiosity, a nascent uncertainty rather than the usual scorn. "I have observed this town," Thorn's voice boomed, cutting through the rising murmurs, "and I have observed its people. True strength, I have found, is not always in the swiftness of foot, but in the unwavering spirit that carries one forward despite all obstacles." His words hung in the air, a profound declaration that resonated with an unexpected truth, challenging the very foundations of their ingrained prejudices. He then spoke of a personal gift, a gesture of investment, not just in the town's future, but in the potential he saw in its overlooked corners, a testament to a vision that transcended mere commerce. And then he unveiled it. Not a new rail line, not a grand building, but a deed, a document that granted me, the man with the limp ownership of the very land upon which the Golden Spur Saloon stood, along with a substantial sum for its immediate renovation and expansion into a thriving general store and community hub. The silence that followed was absolute, a collective gasp swallowed by the sheer impossibility of the moment, the audacity of the gesture, the profound, unexpected reversal of fortune that left the entire town utterly speechless, their faces a tableau of shock and disbelief. Subscribed to witness the aftermath. The deed, crisp and official, felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hands, a tangible symbol of a transformation so profound it defied belief. The crowd in the town square remained frozen, a tableau of stunned faces, their mouths agape, their eyes wide with a mixture of shock, confusion, and a dawning, uncomfortable realization. The man they had mocked, the Limp they had ridiculed, was now, by the decree of the most powerful man they knew, the owner of their most cherished establishment, the very heart of their social world. It was a reversal so complete, so utterly unexpected, that it shattered their preconceived notions of worth and status. The silence stretched, thick and palpable, broken only by the distant caw of a crow, a stark contrast to the usual cacophony of Redemption Creek. No one laughed, no one whispered, no one dared to offer a single word of derision. Their usual bravado had evaporated, replaced by a profound, almost reverent awe, a silent acknowledgement of a power dynamic that had shifted irrevocably. The railroad tycoon's gift had not merely given me property, it had stripped them of their easy targets, their comfortable superiority, leaving them exposed in the harsh light of their own petty cruelties, their faces etched with a dawning shame. Elias Thorne, with a final knowing glance in my direction, simply turned and walked away, his mission accomplished, his message delivered with an impact far greater than any sermon. He left behind a town in disarray, its social hierarchy upended, its collective consciousness reeling from the sheer audacity of his benevolence. The men who had once mimicked my limp now averted their eyes, unable to meet my gaze, their faces flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and a grudging respect. The women, who had often offered pitying glances, now looked with a newfound admiration, a quiet understanding of the justice that had finally been served. The days that followed were a blur of activity, a whirlwind of carpenters and laborers, transforming the Golden Spur Saloon into the bustling general store and community hub that Thorne had envisioned. I oversaw every detail, my limp still present but now carried with a newfound dignity, a quiet confidence that had been forged in the fires of their scorn. The town watched, still largely speechless, as the old structure shed its skin, revealing a brighter, more welcoming facade, a symbol of new beginnings, a testament to the power of unexpected kindness, a monument to the silent triumph of the underdog. The whispers eventually returned, but they were different now, tinged with curiosity, with respect, with a hesitant admiration. The men who had once mocked me now sought my advice on supplies, on prices, on the changing landscape of the town. They spoke to me with a deference they had never shown before, their voices softer, their eyes holding a newfound respect. The gift had not just changed my life, it had changed the very fabric of Redemption Creek, forcing its inhabitants to confront their own prejudices, to re-evaluate their definitions of strength and worth, to see beyond the superficial. And so, the man with the limp, once the object of their cruel amusement, stood at the threshold of a new era, his past humiliations transformed into the bedrock of his quiet triumph. The railroad tycoon's gift had indeed left the whole town speechless, but in that profound silence, a new story began to unfold, a narrative of resilience, of unexpected grace, and of the enduring power of a single act of kindness to reshape an entire world. Their silence was my symphony, a testament to a victory far sweeter than any spoken word. Subscribe to hear the echoes of that silence.